So in chapter 1 now of Animal Farm, this is the stage setting. Basically, Orwell is setting the story up and getting the ball rolling here. Nonetheless, some important things are introduced right away. This little novella just rockets along. Everything is it's very densely packed, so it's well worth reading slowly and reading carefully because Orwell doesn't really waste any time. He writes in very simple, clear, but content-packed prose. So stage setting. Old Major. Old Major is an old pig, and he's been around, and he's going to talk about his dream. He has a dream, the better days. Not sure when they'll come, but better days someday. Some kind of change will come. Animals have been exploited by humans. Farmer Jones has, on Manor Farm, has treated the animals terribly, but someday this will change. So he gives this speech and he goes and calls all the animals late at night in the barn, and he gets and he's kind of on a platform with the straw and everything. He's sort of regal old pig, and he's delivering this inspirational speech to the animals. And basically, it's very clear. There's oppression, and the oppression is straightforward, and there's one answer. It's the fault of human beings. Get rid of them, overthrow them, and we will govern ourselves. So there is a very clear direction. There's a clear problem, clear solution. And one thing Old Major does stress is that do not waver, do not listen to counter arguments, be resolute. So given that there is this oppression, the answer is overthrow humans and don't listen to anything else. Get rid of humans and you will have solved your problem. And basically shut your thinking off along the way. You know the answer. There's no more need for any kind of discussion about it. So right from the beginning of the novel, it's very clear that there is going to be a focus on this particular problem and that particular solution to the problem. So total dedication, total dedication. Animals are our comrades, animals are good, humans are bad. So it's immediately an us versus them. Two legs are good, but four legs or two legs are bad, four legs are good. But the birds didn't like that. So they said, okay, well, wings are good too. So four legs and wings, that kind of stuff. But two legs alone is bad. So watch and keep track of how these little slogans, the sheep will start bleeding out these slogans, two legs bad, four legs good, that kind of stuff. And how these are slogans, when they're used and how they're modified. So when they're used to shut down dissent by basically shouting it down, as the sheep will sometimes start bleeding out these slogans to stop all forms of conversation or any dissenting voices, and how these slogans are modified. So nothing's permanent here. Everything is instrumentalized in the service of this revolution. So the revolution is not, it might be simple, but it's not stationary, and its goals are not even stationary. These things change over time. And so what you want to do is pay attention to how they're modified over time and how it's not just a total onslaught, it's incremental. So that's a key thing. It's directed, it's relentless. Nonetheless, it's incremental. And that's an important thing to keep in mind. So chapter 2 is again, we're still on the farm, and what's going on here? Well, there's the introduction of more characters. Old Major, he's gone. He died. He becomes instantly this mythical type of figure, right? He didn't write anything down. He articulated some things, but Old Major really just articulates roughly the idea of revolution in general. Some slogans, some things, but it's all kind of this ragtag. But he provides that initial direction, that initial simplification of all problems, the reductionism to a single solution. Get rid of humans, animals good, humans bad, but not a real theoretical framework. Not an ideology. We're not at that level, just an idea. An ideology is more than just an idea. An ideology is sort of a system that's dedicated to the service of that idea and can even modify it and in the interests of those that are running, shall we say, the revolution. So once Old Major is gone, Orwell in the second chapter brings in a lot of characters now. And these are the ones you want to watch, especially, and I've only got a few listed here, but here are some important ones. These five are fairly important, probably not so much Moses, but certainly these three form more or less the framework of the novel. So these are three pigs, Napoleon, Snowball, and Squealer, and Boxer is a great horse. And you can think of Napoleon yeah, you can see why Orwell picked that name. He's like the guy in charge who's going to take over and overthrow an old system. Just like Napoleon comes after, the historical Napoleon comes after a certain kind of structure of the French state and a certain form of government, and comes in and is a very different kind of political leader, but you know, he's certainly a powerful one and demands absolute allegiance. So Napoleon is kind of this thug dictator pig, but Snowball, who is with Napoleon in a way, but eventually they have a falling out. Napoleon is like your a politician diplomat. He's the planner. He's the guy that wants to set up committees and organize things. And last but not least, certainly is Squealer. Squealer is this kind of shifty-eyed little pig. And Squealer is the propagandist, as Orwell would call him. We could also call him a gaslighter. Orwell didn't really use that term, but that term is certainly in vogue now. Yeah, Squealer's the kind of guy that, you know, he's always trying to rewrite history. He's always trying to say, no, that's not what we're about. This is what we're about. Oh, you don't understand, or you don't, you know, let me tell you what to think kind of guy. So he's the propagandist and sort of the chief of the gaslighters on behalf of this ideological system that is starting to take shape. And I say system now because what these pigs are doing is they're taking this idea and they're shaping it into an ideology. They're adding content to it. They're adding justifications. They're making inference. They're adding arguments. They're building it up into a structure of thinking, not just a collection of slogans, but a structure. And in this sense, they're turning it into a system that they're going to teach the other animals. And they call this animalism. Kind of a pun play on humanism, animalism. So animalism is going to be this kind of ideology that the pigs are teaching. The pigs are naturally the leaders because they're the most intelligent. And so there is this kind of questionable link between intelligence and leadership. You know, Plato certainly liked that, but is that really necessarily a good link? Is intelligence necessary for goodness? Like, do you have to be intelligent to be good? Do you have to be intelligent to be a leader? Could you not be just a good person and be a good leader? So is it necessary? Is it even sufficient? So these kinds of things you should start being you know, puzzled by, or at least thinking, that are going on in this novel, and asking yourself if this is really a good idea. So so an ideology takes shape. And theorizing education, is it indoctrination? Because the whole effort of the education, the pedagogical process here, is to teach animalism. It's not to teach free thinking, it's to teach how to think in terms of this construct they call animalism. So is that really education, or is that indoctrination? So other systems in ideology are immediately attacked. So Squealer is on the offense, always talking about the horrors of Jones and the old manor farm, like how terrible that was. Moses, who is a tame raven, he talks about Sugar Candy Mountain and the place where animals go, where they all die, and it's wonderful and all that. Well, clearly you can see he's symbolic of a religious figure, and so he's attacked. So Squealer has to attack and get rid of that kind of old way of thinking. And it's interesting to note that Moses is kind of a tame, so he's close to being kind of like a pet of old Farmer Jones. So is there sort of this allegiance between the old manner ways of thinking and religion? Is this sort of like, the state and religion and allied forces, and the revolution is fighting them both? So, anyways, so animalism must be the sole kind of system of thought. No thought without being inside the confines of animalism. But notice that Orwell does say in a variety of places that the animals accepted. They accepted this, right? In fact, they kind of welcomed it, right? So everything was so bad before, so they welcomed a break from what was before. And Orwell is saying, that careful what you welcome. Just because you didn't like something before, it doesn't mean that what's coming in is better, or at least, or even good, but it's something different. So don't confuse difference with improvement. So the pigs really begin by closing off thought. So the violence is intellectual at the beginning, if we can use a term like intellectual violence. It's not physical violence. I just want to distinguish that it's a kind of persuasion. It's not coercion really yet, unless you want to say that the pinching off, the confining of thought to a way of a particular way of thinking is a kind of coercion, right? You're slowly trying to destroy other ways of thinking than animalism. All right, now this sort of early incarceration of animals' minds, the spark of the revolution is kicked off by hunger, when the animals are desperately hungry because Farmer Jones is not feeding them. And so the first outbreak of violence is directed outwards. The animals, they rebel. They physically rebel, and the spark of the revolution has been struck, and Farmer Jones is run off, and the animals are delighted. They did it. They got rid of Farmer Jones, and of course there's going to be a comeback. We'll see that. But the first revolution moment, shall we say, has been a victory. And so rules for Animal Farm are now displayed, right? So the ability to display rules is important here. Keep an eye on these displays of rules and how they change, and how they're discarded, again, like the slogans, and so how things are instrumentalized and they're used. And however, as the chapter ends with the cows haven't been milked, and so so their udders are full to bursting. They haven't been milked, and so they're milked. But this surplus milk, one of the first of the products to have been produced by not Manor Farm but Animal Farm, the first sort of reward or benefit, this surplus milk, that goes missing.